So many years ago, my husband got one of these cameras that you put in your car. And he put it in my car. And me, not being that good with technology, was absolutely terrified by this camera in my car. My kids were still very small at that stage. And when I got into the car, I realized that I was a different person, because can he now listen to everything I'm saying? Can he see me all the time? What is this thing? So I became one person when I was in my car and a different person when I was not in my car. In the mornings, like most of you parents might probably be able to relate, we're always late for school. The kids were in preschool then. And I would sound like someone that's furious when we are late. I would say, how many times do I have to tell you, hurry up, get your school bag in the car? And when we sat in front of that camera, I was just like, oh, my baby's mama's gonna miss you so much today. Oh, you know, I love you so much. This went on for quite a while. One morning, my son fell and he bruised his knee. He was bleeding a little bit. Before we got into the car, I said, you're not going to die. Don't cry. Get in the car. When we were in front of this camera, I said, oh, my poor baby. Mama's going to put a plaster on for you just now. And this went on for about 3 months. Until one day we were sitting at the dinner table. I looked at these 2 little boys and I asked them, what is your favorite thing to do? And I will never forget these small little blue eyes looking at me and saying, Mom, my favorite thing to do is to just drive around in the car. And that always reminds me of us as parents. We often forget how the things that happen to us in life, the situations we are confronted with, influences us. But we also forget how these experiences shape our kids. Because what our kids see in the things we do counts so much more than the things we try to tell them. We can warn them as much as we want, but when they look at us and what they see will always count the most. So when you are given only 40 minutes to talk about bullying, it's quite a challenge. Where do you start? What do you address? And when you look at all the typical bullying information out in the world, it always addresses 2 important things. How kids must deal with bullying, what are the tools they can use, and on the other side, how can we identify and know when our kids are being bullied or whether they are a bully. But I'm taking a different approach today because I think we as parents often forget that bullying is a parenting problem. It's not a child problem. I always say, and the parents often get so mad at me, because I say there's no such thing as a problem child. There's only problem parents. It doesn't always feel that good to hear it. So today I want to speak about you. One of the most profound topics in the world of psychology for me is the simple debate of nature versus nurture. What counts the most? And if we look at research, we see that you are about 50% genetics, but the other 50% and more recent research suggests up to 60% even. You become because of what happens to you, the environment you grow up in. And there's lots of theories out there to explain these important concepts. I use the concept of attachment theory and attachment styles, because in all my years of studying psychology and developing programs, I have never found a theory more relevant for parents to know in which category your child falls. How does a child get into one of these categories? And the most important thing, your child was never meant to be placed in a box. It was never meant for your child to live by the rule that you have this temperament, this is who you are, this is who you can be. And we had a lot of people speaking about the brain, a simple scientific concept such as neuroplasticity teaches us that we can learn so many things. The brain is adaptable. The brain can change. Even us, the old people here, there's still hope for us. I quickly want to share a few fast facts with you before we delve into the concept of bullying. We often forget that when our kids and us are emotionally overwhelmed, that in that moment, our IQ can drop with up to 30 points. I don't know about you, but I can't afford to lose 30 points on my IQ. That's why we sometimes do so many stupid things when we are emotionally overwhelmed. And I always tell this to parents, to kids, to everyone. And my kids, if you grab one of them now, this is one of the most important lessons they will tell you they learned in life. That our values must always be stronger than our emotions. When we empower our kids and teach them that your values are stronger than your emotions, we give them the most powerful tool they can have to fend against bullying. I want to use an example. We often only see negative things in bullying. We often think it's much bigger than it is. And it is a challenge, and we're going to get there, and we're going to speak about it. But I'm going to use a very extreme example to show you how important it is to teach our kids that their values can be stronger than their emotions. So about 3 years ago, my eldest son, was at school. He joined the hockey team. He wasn't very good. He's the academic in the family. He's not the sporty one. And something terrible happened to him. There was a goalkeeper with a very bad attitude, your typical bully. And throughout the year when he participated in hockey, this boy was spreading rumors about him, was telling him terrible things. It got to such a stage where he actually told him, if I was you, I would kill myself. Why don't you just kill yourself? And we worry when we hear this. But this boy never once had to go for a therapeutic intervention. He never had to have this moment. He never had a breakdown. Why? Because unfortunately he grew up with a mom like me. Since he was 3 years old, he could identify what happens in his brain, how does fear develop, what does anger look like. And he had these incredible values. So when this bully kept on telling him this, he started to think, but what am I doing that can contribute to this? And thank God he realized that he doesn't always have to be this wise one telling everybody what they must do, what is right, what is not. And this was part of why the kids felt this way about him. He was always thinking, he's got the answer. He wants to take the lead. He's a very strong leader. So after this whole ordeal, he actually came to me and he said, Mom, I learned something. I said, what? He said, no, I learned that there's something I must change in my attitude. I'm not approaching this the right way. He didn't crumble under the pressure. He grew through it. Even today, sometimes when I do bullying workshops, I take him with me. It's incredible how these values helped him. Because I decided when I had my kids that the strongest thing in your life is going to be your values, and values ingrained in your faith. And I can tell you, for all the adversity, and it's quite an interesting fact, only 22% of high-stress traumatic incidents turns into trauma for our kids. Why? What is it that determines whether something is traumatic for them? The way we respond. The way we respond to these challenges. We forget that they look at us. Is my mom okay? What is she going to do now? What is happening now? I'm looking at her reaction or dad's reaction. We forget about that. Connection remains the most important thing there is in a parent-child relationship. You will see later on, I will show you that connection is still up to date, and through all the years, the biggest, strongest, and most impactful mental health intervention in a child's life. Healthy connection with us as parents determine the quality of the relationships our kids will have throughout their lives. 60 to 90 seconds. We often forget that an emotion is first a chemical reaction of 6 to maximum 90 seconds. So actually, we only have an excuse for 90 seconds for being so mad. But some of you get so mad at your husbands for a week, I'm not going to speak to him. Emotions is a chemical reaction of 6 to 90 seconds. How does it work? You get an emotion, 6 to 90 seconds. After 90 seconds, it becomes a feeling. And a feeling cannot exist without a thought. And if we maintain that feeling for a day, it becomes a mood. And if we maintain that mood long enough, here's the scary part, it becomes a character trait. It becomes part of who you are. That's why teaching our kids to navigate through emotional storms, to tap into their natural resilience, to not crumble and fall when someone says something mean to them. And it's incredible, guys. I work with kids as young as 5 years old. You must see how they can fend against bullying because they are so emotionally intelligent. Self-regulation starts with co-regulation. Though with those of you who has kids under the age of 7, it's easy to tell them, like the cell phone use. Guys, cell phone or technology use is not a substitute for emotional regulation. It does not count. It does not develop emotional regulation. But we sometimes, and I see this so often, encourage our kids. When they cry too long, we put something on the phone or the tablet. That is a big mistake because we're stealing from their self-regulation abilities. And until the age of 7, our kids still need us to co-regulate with them, to be there with them, to guide them through these emotional storms. Next one. Hypothetical reasoning, when we speak to our kids, it's important, and sometimes you're going to have to address bullying behavior in this regard. Kids don't really work well or learn well with hypothetical reasoning under the age of 7. What is hypothetical reasoning? It is when we use examples that are not concrete in the here and now for our kids. Stuff that they never see. Something like, you must eat all your food. There's people in the other side of the world that has nothing to eat. Then we think these poor kids under 7 must learn from that and relate to that. No, it's hypothetical. Use an example that they see in everyday life. Then, shame versus guilt. I always say there's no such thing as bad emotions. But there's only 2 emotions that we as parents must go and play rescue rangers with our kids. And it's these two. Did you know that under the age of 9, a child doesn't have the cognitive ability yet to utilize the emotion of guilt, which is a better emotion? So what do they have to work with? Shame. And the irony is shame is directly proportional to self-confidence development, your self-concept. So our kids feel embarrassed, they feel shame. Whereas guilt is an emotion that says, oh, I did this now, I feel embarrassed, I shouldn't have done that, but next time I won't. I will learn from this. I feel bad, but next time I won't. They don't have that ability up to the age of 9. So what they have to their disposal is shame. Interesting scientific study in the prison world. I took a lot of prisoners and they found that those who experienced shame instead of guilt were almost 80% more likely to commit another offense. That's scary. So under 9, kids still struggle with that. I want to get to this. The mind profiles. This is the concept of attachment styles. These are the boxes that the world wants to put your child in. A box in which your child was never supposed to be. So I'm going to simplify it for you. One day we must do a full day workshop on this. It's actually very intense, so I'm going to try and simplify it for you. The mature category is the category where our kids are comfortable with feelings. They are emotionally intelligent. They have a strong spiritual and emotionally healthy life. The mature category is the one in which we want our kids to be. I'm going to show you what it looks like. The insecure category is the category in which our kids fall, where they actually become kind of pleasers. They want to keep others happy. They sacrifice who they are in order to be accepted. These profiles are important. These are the things that will insecure kids of all the categories are the ones that suffer the most because of bullying. Because they want to be accepted. Because it's so terrible for them when someone breaks down their character. We're going to look at how kids end up in this category. These people just want to keep everyone happy. So how do we identify these people? My dress is not that short, I can jump. How do we identify these people? We often laugh about this, but they are the kind of people who just wants to give to others. They want to compliment. They will come to you and they will say, I love the way you look, which we all will say. But they go overboard. Oh, and your pretty hair, where did you get that? And did you start going to the gym? You are just the most wonderful thing there is, eh? You are just incredible. They say that to everyone. But when you say something nice to them, what do they do? This is a nice scarf, Antoinette. They will say, oh no, this old thing. It's so old. Or your hair looks pretty. No, I'm struggling with that. The ability for kids to accept compliments is actually a big part of so many other emotional intelligence skills. In our EQ for Kids program, we teach the kids, all the kids in the program know, when someone says something nice to you, they actually take their hands and they go like this. They put it in their hearts, the compliment. Why? Because emotions is first a bodily reaction. So we get these kids moving. The physical movement helps them develop self-regulation, develop the ability to receive and say, thank you. So these small things, parents, we don't realize the value of that. We don't realize the value of building our kids up through these small things, and this being their weapon against bullying out in the world. So if we look at the narrow category, these are the kids and people, adults like you. Let's look at the adults. They are the kind of people who avoid. They're not comfortable with feelings. We're not going to discuss this. They avoid conflict. Many years ago, my wonderful husband, maybe one day you guys will get to meet him, But many years ago, he was in this category. And we first got married, and me being someone who loves hugs and I love people, him not being that, avoiding emotional situations, one night I made this romantic dinner for us. Candlelights, champagne, snacks, everything you could think of. And I called him. I told him, you must sit down. I'm going to play you a song. And this song's going to tell you exactly how I feel about you. Him being in that category, way too many emotions now. He sat there and the song played for a mere 2 seconds before this man started tilting his head like this and saying, that speaker is a bit skew. I'm going to the garage to get a screwdriver to fix it. They do stuff like that. Sometimes he would approach me and I would get all excited. He's going to hug me now, this man. He's going to kiss me. Tonight is the night. Then he walks towards me and he just wants a glass or something behind me. They are also the kind of people when you send them this loving message. Oh, last night was so romantic and beautiful. And I love you so much. You mean the world to me. They are the kind of people who sends that. I wish I could delete that thing. They do that. Yeah, that one. Guys, this sounds funny, but these profiles develop in the first 7 years of your child's life. Then we can start seeing these things. The narrow kids who are so avoidant often don't even tell their parents when they are being bullied, when they struggle, when they are going through challenging times. They don't. Our insecure kids sometimes find a way to justify the behavior of others. And say, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. That was on me, my bad. The disrupted category, which we're not going to talk a lot about today, is a category in which kids fall who come from very traumatic circumstances. Let's look at a mature mind profile. Secure. They have consistent and responsive caregivers. Their parents are emotionally available to them. I always think of a story when that happens many years ago. I was at a lady's house, and at that moment, her husband just brought the kids back from school. One of the kids was a grade 1 child, and he came running to his mom, and he said, Mom, I'm so sad. And he was crying, and he said, another boy at school bullied me, and he told me this and this and this. And the mom, instead of being emotionally available, first step, always step into your child's view, their emotions, not your opinions. So what she did was, it was terrifying. I can't forget this day ever. She looked at him and she said, who is this child who did this? And he said, no, Peter. And she said, no, why do you worry what Peter says? They are terrible people. Do you know his mom and dad? Woo! Don't worry what he says to you. The emotional reality of that child is not Peter and who his parents is. It's what happens inside of him. So what was this mother supposed to do? Step number 1, eye level. Pick him up. Tell him, I'm sorry this happened to you. Empathize. Be there. Step into that feeling. That's also what is called connection. We as parents often, our first step is what? To give advice. Your child doesn't necessarily need your advice. In fact, more often than not, they don't need your advice at all. Because remember, advice is given through examples when they look at you. Warm and affectionate interactions and a stable home environment. Insecure, inconsistent caregiving, unpredictable parental responses, overprotective or intrusive parenting. I quickly want to look at that. Unpredictable parental responses. These kids that fall into this category often have parents where their primary, let's take only their primary attachment figure. Let's say mom. I'm going to use, it can be mom or dad. Mom is, for instance, herself not emotionally intelligent. She sometimes feels so depressed. She just wants to lie in bed the whole day, watch TV. But the next day, she feels better. Come, let's play, let's do this. So these poor kids don't know what's going to happen on what day. There's no consistency. Often when we think of consistency, what do we think of? Rules, regulations, routine. Consistency for kids is number one, emotional consistency. It's the most important form of consistency. Then rules and routine and everything comes in. So these kids often at a young age, we think they are so cute because they make coffee or tea all the time. Oh, mom's not feeling good today. I better make some tea and cookies. Mom, this is for you. I hope you feel better soon. We often see these kids as being very emotionally intelligent. At school, they are the ones that wants to please the teacher all the time. The teacher's pet who wants to do everything. These things that look so nice and cute are often something we need to worry about. We don't want to raise kids who are pleasers, who crumble under peer pressure. Our parental stress or anxiety that never becomes a child problem. Your child is not responsible for your feelings or emotions. Never. Even if your child is being naughty, let's say your child is breaking a glass in front of you, throwing things down, the situation in front of you should not dictate what you feel. We need to show our kids that we can remain in control of our feelings, despite the fact that they might be feeling this emotional turmoil inside of them. We need to be their safe harbor. Parenting is like building a little boat. You need to get the sails right. You need to get this boat to be able to sail out into the open sea. You as a parent, you are the harbor. So our main goal as parents is to get this boat as strong as possible so that we can do what? This. You can sail on your own. You always have a safe place to return to at any time. And that is probably one of the biggest sacrifices of any parent. Narrow, emotionally distant or unavailable caregivers, rejection or minimization of child's emotional need, emphasis on independence. These kids from a young age are expected to do so many things which they cannot necessarily do. From a young age. These are often the kids my youngest son plays rugby at school. I don't like rugby. It's bad for me, but I go, I support him. But these rugby parents at the school, some of them, especially, there's this one boy who is extremely good at rugby. And we often see this profile develop in parents who take this approach. When their son gets a trophy for rugby, most try scores, they sit here in the front. They clap hands all the time. Dad will go, well done, my son. Give him a handshake. But when they are at home, emotions is something there's no space for. Come on, you're a man. Pick yourself up. This is what causes kids to fall in this category. To not be comfortable with feelings and emotions. It's a lack of physical affection, a harsh or rigid parenting style. Disrupted, we're not going to go through that in detail. This is one for the workshop. Abuse, neglect, trauma, parental mental health issues, frightening or frightened behavior from caregivers, unresolved loss or trauma in parents. These are actually only 10 to 15% of kids fall into this category. It's one of the scarcer ones and where a lot of traumatic things happen. So if we look at bullying, bullying is different today than it was 20 years ago. People often ask me, but do you think it's worse? And I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's different. It's not the same. Kids have social media today. Bullying can happen online. It can happen on so many different platforms. In our days when we were at school, we said, I will meet you 3 o'clock behind the rugby stadium. We take our fists out. It's different for our kids. But what worries me is that the difference between then and now is a big emotional difference. Our kids are being bullied emotionally. Our kids are being told they are not good enough. Our kids are being told you are not worthy. And if you remember what I said at the beginning, what we give our kids in terms of values will be their weapon. Will be their weapon against any form of bullying. Many personality psychologists who specialize in personality often say, and I get so mad when people say stuff like this, that certain temperament kids will be shyer, they will be less able to deal with bullying. No. It's a skill which your child and every other child has the ability to learn to do, no matter what their personality type is. It's like the energy we choose to walk into a room with. I taught my kids, when they were 2, 3 years old, every night they had to run outside to the front door, knock on the door, and they had to learn, how do I enter a room? How do I show up in different situations? They practice it because the energy a child shows up with, or you, when you walk in somewhere, often determines what the impression will be that people will have of you and peers around you for the remainder of your life or school days. So if we can teach them to be more confident in their body postures, the way they enter a room, it counts so much. Just the positive body posture, maintaining that for 2 minutes can lower cortisol levels with up to 22%. Cortisol levels, stress hormones. That's why those everyday things of telling our kids, walk up straight, pull your shoulders back, are so important. We forget about that. And the example we set, the way you walked into this room today, some of you walked in here, oh, it's going to be a long day. How am I going to survive? Some of you walked in here today and looked at some of the other speakers or me, and you're thinking, who is this woman? Where did they find her? Sis! Guys, when we do that, who is usually 2 steps behind us looking at us? Our kids. That's what they see. The first thing they see, that's what they learn from you. Our parents, we as parents play a big role in bullying when we model aggressive behavior, when we cannot control the way we speak to our kids. And sometimes our kids will do terrible things. We will feel like, I want to strangle you. But the way we react in those situations, the way we maintain emotional control, is what teaches them about emotional control. Encouraging competition, jy moet wen. You're going to have to win today. We practiced the whole week. You are the best in this speech competition. My son, the one who's not athletic, he has got such a great attitude when he participates in the athlete. He always participates. Home sports, all the kids can participate. He runs at the back. And when he finishes, there at his chair, there's a whole group of kids cheering, waiting. And he always says he came first from behind. He's got the right attitude. I had to teach this to him since he was very young. I played games with my kids. This is turning out to be a testimony more than a bullying workshop. I'm sorry, I'm going to get to the stuff now. But when they were still small, when they started speaking, I played a game with my kids called the "But Luckily" game. So we would drive in the car anywhere, and I would see something negative, like another car that was bumped or scratched, driving in front of us. And I would say, "Oh my goodness, look at that car. It looks terrible, someone bumped into it. But luckily," and when I said that, they knew, we have to think of something good now. And they would say, "But luckily, they still have a car and it can still drive." So when they became teenagers, my eldest son is almost 60 now in 3 months, they get that, those eye-rolling phase. "Oh, Mom." But now, I played that game for many years, so it's trigger in their brains. You have to build in triggers in your child's life. Now, I say, "But luckily," when he's so negative about something, and he rolls his eyes and he says, "Oh, Mom, but what happened?" I build it in as a trigger in the first 7 years of his life. So now, even if he doesn't want to say the answer or tell me anything, the program in his brain is automatic. His brain automatically thinks of something positive. He's got no choice in the matter. His mom programmed him. And that's the valuable things we sometimes forget, these small little triggers. Comparison. Ooh, I see this a lot amongst parents. What do? Our kids come home with a test. Mom, I got 70% on my test. Well done. And how much did Johnny get? And Susan? And the other kids in the class? No. You first look for the clue of what your child is feeling. He's excited. Join that energy. I'm proud of you, my boy. Not how did all the other kids do. This one happens more easy than we think. Using negative language towards others, we discuss other people in our household, people we don't like. Your kids hear that. That's where they learn how to engage with other people. Inconsistent discipline, overprotectiveness. This one is one the moms struggle with. Remember I told you you're building a boat? You have to do this one day. Since the day your child is born, you're gradually beginning with the process of starting to do this. You want them to be able to be one day to do all of these things on their own. You can't do this all the time. Our moms find that quite challenging. And it plays a big role in bullying and a child's ability to deal with bullying, to handle it when they are being bullied. Promoting social hierarchies. This is something that's still very, it's happening a lot still in schools. Schools still have that higher class kids, middle class, lower class. Interesting thing, it's not a financial, economic thing like we as adults define these things. But it is a social thing. In our days, many years ago, at the top used to be the jocks, what we called them, and the girls that were so beautiful with the short skirts. But this is very interesting. This actually changed. Many years ago, kids who got 90% or 80% were called the nerds. That has downsized a bit, which I'm actually excited about. The kids who are the leaders, part of the leader group, the readers, the academic performers are the higher ones in the social hierarchy now, which is wonderful. It's great. It's something positive. People often speak negatively about our youth. I'm so worried because they have this and technology. No, I'm excited about our youth. They have a different way of doing things. They have a new way of doing things. We are the ones that need to change. We need to adapt. We need to empower this special generation that we have the privilege of raising. I always think of, when I think of the youth, I think of it's a big challenge that I want to live up to. I hope I can. I always think of David in Psalm 62. I absolutely love this verse, where David has gone through many challenges and adversities. And sometimes our challenges serve us so much greater than our victories. And I think David learned this lesson. He learned the value of how challenges made him a king. Where he actually goes and he says there in Psalms, Lord, lead me to a hill that is too high for me. He wants it because he knows what the value of that is. Our kids' brains have the ability to be resilient. We have to help them identify the opportunities in the midst of their challenges. And it starts by investing in terms of their values. And we as Christians are very lucky because we have our faith through which we can do most of this foundational work with them. The parent-child connection is still the most powerful mental health intervention that exists. I said that. Quick connection moments can be long hugs, eye gazes, hand squeezes. When connection is high, resistance is low. Kids who are connected in a healthy way cooperate better. Now I want to quickly look at self-confidence development. So our kids need confidence to be resilient. And if we look at self-confidence, the English word is self-confidence. And there's probably not many of you that are Afrikaans here, and I also struggle with Afrikaans. I sometimes feel that you can't say everything you want to say. But this Afrikaans word for me is amazing. The word selfvertroue. Why? Because I want you as a parent to remember, self-confidence develops through the ability to be able to trust yourself. The ability to keep the promises you make to yourself. Your own track record with yourself. That's why it's so important for us to help our kids set goals. To achieve their goals. To stick to their goals. Because it's directly proportional to self-confidence. Your child needs to be able to know and to learn that I can trust myself. When I say for the next year, every Friday afternoon, I'm going to go cycling for 3 kilometers, and you make that commitment, assist your child in staying true to these goals that they set. It's one of the best ways to develop self-confidence. When we praise our kids, remember we're talking about this because we want more resilient kids. To have more resilient kids, we need more confident kids. Compliments in kids need to be detailed and specific. We can't just say when your son comes home and he got 80% on his math tests, well done, my boy, that's amazing, you got a distinction. We can say that, but we build confidence when we look at the details. Wow, that sum, number 10, was quite difficult, and you did all the steps right. I'm proud of you. Oh, Mom, look at this beautiful picture. Yes, it's amazing. But that little sun that you drew there in the corner, how did you do that? You must show me. That's brilliant. To get more detailed with our praise. Then another thing when it comes to kids is one of the most underutilized words in a parent-child relationship is the word thank you. How often when you go and visit people and your kids got there and they greeted everyone very nicely, how often when you go home do you look at them and say, my boy, thank you for greeting those people so well. Wow! Thank you for being kind. Thank you for doing that. We often forget that. And the irony is it reinforces good behavior. Connection, an interesting thing. When your child has a mature mind profile, they feel connected with you. Their self-preservation centers of their brain is more relaxed. Social and emotional hub of the brain generates feelings of confidence and safety. And the part of the brain responsible for reasoning, impulse control, short-term memory, and judgment lights up. A child remembers better when they feel safe, seen, and secured. We as parents often want to discipline and speak to our kids from our perspective, from our experience, from who we are. But the first rule of communicating and teaching kids is to step into their world, to meet them where they are. There's many tests out in the world. The one in South Africa, the registered EQ test, has about 200 questions. But I always summarize these questions and take it together into 3 questions that you can ask yourself and you can look out for when it comes to your kids. Because emotionally intelligent kids deal better with being bullied. And the chances of them being a bully also shrinks away. The ability to say no. Your wonderful pastors there at the back spoke about role playing. Role playing, actually, up until the age of 12, is one of your greatest tools as a parent. To role play what they can do. Listen, this might happen to you. Let's quickly role play how you can say no. Because you know what? It's great to be able to say yes to everything. But sometimes there's more wisdom in being able to say no. To teach our kids to get comfortable with those feelings after they said no. What do we want to do? We want to lie, make an excuse, make up something when we say no. But the ability to sit with those uncomfortable feelings and just say, no, unfortunately, I can't. Or I won't participate in this. Without giving a reason. To teach them these skills is proportional to developing assertiveness skills, tons of other skills, which is their greatest weapon when it comes to bullying. Ability to receive, we spoke about that. Remember the thank you. Being vulnerable. Did you know that being vulnerable is an incredible emotional intelligence quality? Our avoidant kids in the narrow category and other adults struggle with this. It is the ability to say, I am not in a good place, I need help. Or I was wrong, I apologize. A quick test if you want to see if you can be vulnerable or not. If you walk in the shopping center and you fall, what is your first reaction? Do you quickly look around, who saw me now? Or do you dust yourself off and laugh at yourself? If your instinctive reaction is, who saw me now? Then you struggle with vulnerability. Our kids need to see that we can still be strong even if we are vulnerable. Let me stand up high when I say this. The greatest gift that you can give your child, parents, listen, the greatest gift is to be the best version of yourself. Those dreams that you gave up on, those holes that you sink into, I don't feel good, I'm so negative, life is not good. Those things are the things that your child will see. When they go into the world, they have to face bullies. They have to be assertive. They have to be able to stand up for themselves. Do they think of their mom and dad and say, wow, my mom is so happy. My mom lives a dream. Do they? Because that's what counts. Sometimes we don't do this and we put this emotional burden on our kids where they have to manipulate their world so that we can feel better, so that they can uplift us a little bit. No child must ever in their lives have that burden upon them. So remember that the greatest gift you can give your child is to be the best version of yourself. And on that high note, are you the best version of yourself? What do you see when you look at the world and the people around you? I always use this simple story to explain this. There's a guy on a donkey, packs his bags, and he wants to move into a new town. When he gets to the gate of a town, there's a guy sitting under the tree. He looks at him and he said, Sir, please tell me, how are the people that live in this town? And the guy said, first tell me, how are the people there where you come from? And he said, you know what, they are terrible. I don't like them. I can't get along with them. They are stupid. They are just terrible. And the guy under the tree looked at him and said, but sir, then you will find that the people living in this town are exactly the same. Another guy also packed his bags on his donkey, got to the gate, looked at the guy under the tree, and same guy, and he said, sir, how are the people that live in this town? Because I want to move in here. And the guy said, first tell me how are the people there where you came from? And he said, you know what? They are incredible. I love them. They've got so much potential. It's an honor for me to spend time with them. And the guy under the tree looked at him and he said, sir, but then you will find that the people living in this town are exactly the same. The way we choose to look at something will determine what we see. But more than that, the way we as parents look at something will determine what our kids see. So if you are sitting here today wondering, is my child armed with the correct armor to deal with bullying behavior, to not be a bully? I want to ask you, are you the best version of yourself? Because the answer to that will be the greatest influence on your answer to whether your child is ready for the world out there and for the world around them. I only had 45 minutes in my defense. I couldn't go into the deeper details of bullying, but I will hang around here a bit afterwards. You are more than welcome to come and speak to me. I hope that one day we're going to do a few workshops and dig into this subject a little bit more. But I want to thank you. It was an honor for me to speak to you. And parents, look alive. Show up with energy in your own household. Set that example for your child. Sometimes, I'm almost done, we are afraid of so many silly, stupid things. There's no better word. Yes, I used the word stupid. Because we are. We forget to live. We let fear and worry dictate the way we show up when it comes to the household where our kids are. And to remind you not to be scared of stupid things, I want to end with this example. Many years ago, when I first developed the EQ for Kids program, I was sitting outside our house. There's a big stoep, lapa. I had my laptop. 2 weeks ago was my birthday. My husband bought me a new iPad. Sitting there working on my computer. And my eldest son, who's all grown up now, was still a little toddler then, only 4.5 years old. And I have one fear in life, and that fear is grasshoppers. I'm so scared of grasshoppers. I think it's because my brother threw them in my shirt when we were still kids. So I was sitting there working outside, fresh air, and suddenly a grasshopper jumps onto the floor. Me being scared of grasshoppers, and my fear very well known, unfortunately, to this 4-year-old boy, I jumped on the chair and I said, "No, grasshopper!" He comes running. He says, "Mom, I will save you." He grabs my iPad and he slams the grasshopper. Now I'm thinking, I want to kill him. He turns it around, it's only glass. Now I must think, because I'm the developer of this emotional intelligence program, I have to set the example, I have to do things right. But luckily, before I could grab him, he looked at me, he picked up the iPad, showed it to me like this, and he says, "Mom, when you are going to be scared of stupid things like grasshoppers, then stupid things like this will always happen." What a lesson. Sometimes we are so scared of stupid things. And we teach our kids to fear simple things, which God has already empowered them. Jeremiah, I thought of you and I had a plan for you before you were born. Who are we to take that away from them? Who are we to decide differently? So guys, have a fantastic day and stop being scared of stupid things.